Hello, guys. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of STEMMY Conversations. STEMMY Conversations are podcasts founded by myself, Bradley Downer, and Stephanie Simon and Miss Kennedy Roberts. The aim of this podcast is to educate youths about careers within the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and information communication technology, or as we would call it, STEM and ICT. Be sure to follow us on our various social media platforms, that is on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Today we have a guest with us, Mr. Mischa Christie from Jamaica. Hi, Mischa, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up? I'm pretty good, Bradley. How is everyone doing this morning?
I'm good. Hi, Steph. Good morning. How are you doing?
Hi. Hi, good morning. I am okay.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
All right, so Mr. Mischa, what career did you pursue, and give our audience a basic description of what you do on a daily basis, like your job description.
Okay, all right. So I pursued pharmacy. So I did a bachelor's of pharmacy with the University of Technology in Jamaica. When it comes down to being a pharmacist or a registered pharmacist now, a day-to-day, looking to the day-to-day life includes, basically when someone comes to you with a prescription, you have to make sure that, first of all, you have everything that's on the prescription. You make sure, you ask them what it is that they want from the prescription. Then you make sure that everything's okay on the prescription, meaning that the doses of each medication is correct. You want to make sure that each drug can work with each other. You don't have any interactions, because you might have this drug interacting with another drug sometimes, and we pick that up. I would try to change the drugs with the content of the doctor. You want to also make sure that I guess the therapy in general is correct. So like if there's a medication that's supposed to be taken twice daily, you want to make sure it's twice daily and not just doubled up once daily. And the different things like that. I just want to make sure that everything is good with the prescription, everything is going to be safe for the patient. Then knowing you process the prescription, as well as using the patient's insurance and so on. Then you want to go ahead to make sure that the medication, when you're packing it, everything is right with packing the medication. Also, you want to make sure it's the correct strength you take up from the shelf. You want to make sure that the expiration date is correct. You want to make sure that everything is correct as to what you processed, and you want to make sure that what was processed is correct. Then basically at the end now, you want to do one final check. All these processes, by the way, each one of them, we try to have different people doing them, because the more people doing it is the lower chance of error, or a higher chance of someone picking up an error along the way if there's an error. So say someone picks up the prescription and they process something, then you have someone else packing with a prescription. They can look at the prescription and say, wait, I'm packing this, but I don't see that on the prescription. So you can say that someone probably made an error. Or the person processed it right, but then the person packing it now probably has more knowledge and says, all right, I'm seeing these two medications on the prescription, they can't be given together. So then, you'd have a picking up of some sort of error. The final stage is always has to be done by the pharmacist. So me as a pharmacist, I can do all of that, but the final stage has to be done by me. I have to check off that everything that was packed, processed was correct. So basically that last final stage is just checking that everything along the process was correct. So you want to make sure that what was packed is what was processed, and what was processed is what was on the prescription. You want to make sure that what's on the prescription is correct again. So basically what you do in the beginning, you're going to do it again here, but here you already have the prescription. And if you pick up anything wrong, you're going to have to call the doctor to be like, yo, doc, this is not what the patient usually gets. Did you mean to change it, or were you unaware? Or doc, this medication is normally this strength, but we realize you gave it this strength. Is, would you want us to change it, or did you have something else in mind? Yeah, so always respectfully approach the doctor to try and change it if there's anything wrong. So I guess that's a basic day-to-day look in the life of a registered pharmacist, you could say. And there's a lot of other things along the way, like patient counseling as well. Yeah, I never mentioned that. So when everything is right and you call the patient to the counter again, then you give them the patient counseling. You give them you tell them how to take the medication. You ask them what's happening in their life around the medication. You try to give them a little health coaching a bit, just to help them fix their lifestyle around whatever is happening right now. So yeah, that's a basic day-to-day thing. And I guess along the way you have some different things, because you have some things like patient scheduling. You have sometimes we call the patient to say, all right, your prescription is ready, come pick it up, different things along the way, but that's just a major day-to-day look of what we do as pharmacists.
Okay, cool. So now I have a better appreciation for the pharmacists, because they have a lot of things that they need to do and ensure that it's in place. So thumbs up for that.
So when we get a prescription, it can take us a while to do, even if it's 2 items on it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes something might be wrong on it. We have to be trying to get through to the doctor. Sometimes the doctor not answer, and so on. So it's a lot. It's not just, oh, you see this here, and let me take it up on the shelf and give you. It's a lot that's behind the scenes. Yeah.
Okay, so what actually motivated you to go into the field of pharmacy or medicine, actually?
Well, what kind of sparked that little interest for the medicinal field? Basically, my mother, she's a pharmacist as well. So I grew up in the field. So basically, from I was born, I just grew to have an appreciation for it, because I'm always around the conferences, I'm always in the pharmacy with her while she's doing her stuff, So it was interesting for me. That's kind of all I knew. So I was like, let me actually try. Let me try it for myself to see what it is, and I went into it, yeah, basically.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so what advice would you give to the younger folks that are coming up in this field, or just started?
I just started. Basically, the advice I would give is definitely kill your imposter syndrome. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that can be associated with any field, really. But we talk about pharmacy now. But yeah, because the thing with pharmacy is there's a lot of things that can go wrong along the way. As you can see from what I told you, even if we get a prescription that's like there's something wrong with the prescription from the doctor, and we dispense that wrong thing, but it's correct to the prescription, but there's something wrong with the prescription and we dispense it, we are the ones who are liable, not the doctor. So we kind of have to make sure that everything is right along every single step of the way, because if anybody's going to jail, it's us. Obviously, yes, the doctors can be dragged into it, but at the front line, foremost, it's us. And along every step of college, the lecturers always jump into your head that you are the last point of contact for all these patients. So they can go to the hospital first, then they get referred to, say, a specialist, and the specialist can refer them to somewhere else, and then they get a prescription, and then they come to you, and then they go home and take that medication. So you are the last one in all of that. So you have to make sure that everything that happened with them from the hospital to the cardiologist, everything is fine, everything is right, nothing is going to affect them anyway along the way. So a lot of the times especially when you just come out, you're just like, crap. Especially when you end up in a situation where you're the only pharmacist in there and you're new, you're like, you're kind of worried, because you're like, I hope nothing goes wrong. You might be a little more meticulous, because nothing go wrong and you want in the pharmacy. But what you find is that when you keep good connections, this is a good tip. Keep your connections, because I'm still in a group with my entire batch year. So I'm still in that group. And sometimes we ask each other stuff, but there's also a subgroup I have, which is just like 10 of us. That one was a group of us that went to an internship site together. So that was the last group that we were fully together with, so we can, I guess, grow a stronger bond. So we have a close of friendship and relationship. And I'm still in a WhatsApp group with them. And literally every single day, there's just a new prescription in the group that you can help out with. You know, you can see and you know, help out. If someone's asking, yo, what's this on number one? Because sometimes we cannot understand the doctor's writing. So we take a picture, I'll be like, what's number one? You know, we help out each other. Or we can say, yo, what strength is this medication supposed to be? So on, you ask your friends and they help you out, you know. So definitely keep connections. It's a thing, whereas I'm the type of person going through college, I was definitely a loner. I was studying alone, doing some of that alone. But by the time I reached final year, I realized it wasn't working anymore. Like, it was working in the beginning because that's how I was from high school. But like, as it grew more and more and it got more like technical and in the pharmacy thing, I realized we kind of need to have a little social relation, because in that last part, I realized when I was doing my study groups, that's when I was getting the higher marks. You know, I was definitely passing more and so on. And when you build that relation now you're outside, you can always step back to the people and be like, yo, help me out with this, help me out with that, especially when you're by yourself in the pharmacy, you know. Yeah. So that's my tips, I guess, you know, build strong relations, read a lot, yeah. Be careful and kill your imposter syndrome. That's what I'm gonna share with any new person coming in.
Thank you for those tips. I'm gonna take some of those as well, because I'm a bit of a loner too, but it's till I jumped into like the second or the third year in my studies that I realized group work, it pays off.
Exactly.
I thought I could have done it alone, but I needed the help and I pulled through. So
exactly.
That's true. So I hope that you guys are listening out there. Please take these tips and don't just put it in a corner. Work with them.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't have any more questions to ask at this point, but Bradley, would you have any more that you'd like to add?
Yes, I have a few more questions.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Mr. Christie, how is STEM or ICT integrated into your career? How is it integrated? How does it fit in?
How does it fit in? Okay, all right. So when it comes down to looking at STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, basically, obviously, science is heavily integrated in pharmacy. Getting into pharmacy, you have to, at the CSEC level, you guys are CSEC, right? That's what you do. CSEC, yeah. At the CSEC level, you have to do all three sciences and math. So that's physics, chemistry, bio, and math. When it comes down to the CAPE level, you can either do 2 sciences and math or the 3 sciences. So when it comes down to science and even the math component, it's heavily intertwined, you know, because when it comes down to being a pharmacist, you definitely want to know that you can calculate the things right, because when it comes down to say a child comes up, they need a certain dose of something. Child doses are always 50 milligram per kilogram, 50 milligram per pound. You have to know, say, you know, obviously that's kind of a simple one because you just weigh the child and you times it out. But you have some other conversions there, and you have some formula there where it's like, here's one, I don't want to get too technical, but there's one called creatinine clearance, and there's a formula for that. Basically, we're kind of supposed to remember it. I don't know what it is right now, but in the real world, you just, you know, look it up on the internet and be like, all right, that's the formula, and you just plug in what you need to plug in for the formula. But in exams, it always wants us to remember that formula. I cannot tell you even the first thing that's on that right now, honestly. But there's a lot of math involved. You have to be very accurate because this is not just anything. These are people's lives, you know, as I was saying earlier, and as I was saying again, if anybody's supposed to be liable for anything, it's you. So you want to make sure the math right. You want to make sure the science right. So you want to understand how the medication work in your body, because then that's important for certain people. Try to find an example. So for example, let's say certain painkillers now in the body, they'll have certain effects, like they'll probably prevent the blood vessels from expanding too much as a side effect, right? So you look at that now, that's one science of NSAIDs. Those are specific type of painkillers. And then you look at the science of what's happening in somebody with hypertension. No, with someone with hypertension, you want the blood vessels to be expanding. That's how some of the medication work. It expands the blood vessel. So now, when you have a medication with a side effect of preventing that expansion going into somebody with hypertension, what's going to happen? You're going to have a worsening in the blood pressure readings. You're going to have a counteracting in the medication that they're taking for their hypertension. You know, simple things that you need to know how the mechanism of action of certain drugs work based on a lot of different things. So you can pick up drug interactions, you can pick up drug disease interactions. So there's a lot of things you have to know when it comes down to the science of the medication. And it's all intertwined with chemistry and biology. Chemistry and biology mainly. I'm trying to think of physics. Yes, physics as well, because when it comes on to, I guess, when we're making medication, like not making them from scratch, but say you get a tablet and you want it to be in suspension. You want to know certain things like heat lability. So I guess specific heat capacity comes in there. You want to know the suspension time, suspension rate for certain things. So the sciences are definitely intertwined. When it comes down to ICT and the T in STEM now, you have to know how to work technology when it comes into pharmacy. Sometimes I think they do have training courses for these different software that we use, because these software, some of them, it depends on where you go. Because if you go to a UE hospital, you're gonna have certain software. I can't remember the software name. I think it's called HIMS or something like that. Yeah, that software now is what communicates to the entire hospital. So you know, in the pharmacy sector, you're gonna have to know how to use it properly, so that, okay, if a doctor sends a prescription, an e-prescription for say a COVID patient, you're gonna have to know how to access it, you're gonna have to know how to fill it out, this and that. So the T definitely comes in the regular pharmacy setting, like a community pharmacy. Each pharmacy has their different software that they use, so you're gonna have to know how to use these software to process and fill prescriptions and process insurance and all of that. So yeah, that's basically how STEM is intertwined. Some pharmacists go on to be chemical engineers, so I guess you can also slap in the E somewhere. So yeah, I guess that, yeah.
Okay, that is very interesting. At least you gave us a good breakdown of how it's intertwined.
Yeah.
How was your journey of getting to UTech? What was it like? I know you mentioned earlier about the study groups, but what was your journey like?
Well, the journey in UTech, it was an interesting journey, because I'm trying to remember, honestly. How long ago was it? It was actually like 3 years, but like I do definitely remember that me being a loner, it was very go to school, go home for me. And, you know, but there was a lot of reading that had to be done around it. And I'm not the most, when it comes down to reading, I'm not really going to be reading a lot. Let's just say that in my free time. So I guess it was a challenge for me, but the biggest challenge was I have a weakness, and it's procrastination. So I'm a heavy, chronic procrastinator. If you give me something now to do, like I used to find this, they'd give me like an assignment to do now, and it's like 3 months down the line, and I would be eager to do it now. So I'd pull up the laptop and I'd sit there and I'm trying to do this project. And I don't know. I physically couldn't do it. My brain just blocked. I don't know what to do. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I want to do this project, but I don't know what the first thing to do is. But I don't know what happened whenever the night before come. It's like the entire knowledge base that I had just finally unlocks and I get to do everything correctly. And the thing is, it always ended up coming up good. So it's not like I'd ever really learn or listen to be like, stop. So it just continued. So that's one of the things that just perpetuated through college. I was just a really bad procrastinator. So I don't even know how to give you tips on that one, because I didn't even really fix that. So basically it's just to try and, I guess, time manage your time well and stuff. But as I said, even when I tried to do it before too late, but for me, I guess it was never really too late, but like it's all right. Thing is basically the way how my brain works, that's how my brain works. I guess I work better under stress. So it's like I just can't do the things until night before. But like if you know, you need to work on how your brain works. So that's what I guess I'm giving to you. Figure out how your brain works in college and just work with that. Because I had some friends, they'd be studying from like 2 weeks out, a month out, and I would just take up the book the night before. And it's like I'm getting the same grades as them. So I just never really saw the need for me personally to have to do that, you know? So it's like, yeah. I guess that's the journey for me basically when it came on to that. There was a time too where it was third year, and that's when it started to get a bit rocky for me. And this is when I kind of figured out that I need help and I can't just keep doing it by myself. Because in first semester of third year, I failed 2 courses. And these 2 courses, they were basically the fundamental pharmacy course, because each semester there's always a fundamental pharmacy course or two, and then you have some surrounding courses that help to flesh out your knowledge. But yeah, I failed the two only fundamental pharmacy courses that semester. And I just didn't know what to do. I felt really bad because I was not used to feeling like this. And I'm just like, what's happening? And it was getting so hard. So the second semester now, I started doing a bit more, I guess, like study sessions where like I probably do a Skype call or so on, do a past paper together. And I realized that doing part two of what I failed in semester one, actually it worked out better. And two, I feel like I just was more familiar with the knowledge. So I kind of got into a groove of understanding what was happening because I just never understand what it was going the first time. Then the first semester of fourth year now, I was supposed to do like about 8 modules, but because I failed those two and I never wanted to do an extra year, I just kind of stuffed those two in to that first semester. So I was doing 10. I don't know how I was doing it too, because also I went on this thing called work and travel in the summer. So it's not like I stayed and did extra courses in the summer. And I came late. So I was doing 10 courses. I came late to the semester, like 2 weeks late. It was awful. But that semester now I just decided, listen, every single thing is going to be a group thing. So every assignment I have to do, I'm going to be doing it with somebody. Every single test along the way, I'm doing it in a group. And I passed every single one of those, all 10 of them. So that was my journey. It was basically a journey to kind of seeing how best to adapt to certain situations. So it's like I know in the core, still now I do a lot of things better on my own, but like in certain situations, you're gonna have to adapt. And that translates even now into my career where it's like you kind of don't want to ask somebody something because you don't want to make it seem like you don't know what you do. But sometimes you have to just kind of suck it up and be like, me don't know me I do. What is this? Help me out. So yeah, it does translate over into your career and real life. So that was my journey basically. That's the most memorable part of my journey. I know there was a lot of other stuff around the place, but that was the most memorable part of pharmacy school, I guess.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So what are the requirements of doing the pharmacy course at UTEC?
Well, all right. So I touched on some of them before. When it comes down to subjects at the CSEC level, you have to do all 3 sciences and math. When it comes down to the CAPE aspects, you have to do either 2 sciences and math or all 3 sciences. When it comes on to age requirements, I think you have to start at least 18. It's 4 years. You cannot be a registered pharmacist under 21. So under 21, they won't register you as a pharmacist. So if it is that you start the course at say 17 and you finish at like 21. If you start it young and you finish it young, you'd have to like sit out a year or so before you get registered. So that's the next thing too. What are some other requirements? I think that was basically it. And then out of it just came down to the interview where they were like, they would ask you certain things, some certain psychometric things to see how your brain works and so on, to see how accurate you are as a person, how thorough you are. So I guess that's something you want to keep in mind as well. Yeah, I think that's it. And also just get, pretty good grades. So it's not like, yes, you can't really coast through on the three sciences and math and expect to kind of get in. It's kind of thing like where they kind of want you to be up here a little bit. So make sure you aim for like your ones, your twos, and so on. And that's when them kind of be like, all right, good, we'll accept you. Because everyone knows say people them coming in, them fully know what them are doing, yeah.
So besides being a pharmacist, you said you're a blogger, author, and a content creator.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your journey as a writer, as an author. What pushed you to write the book? What was the book about?
Right.
What was that?
Yeah. So yes, as you know, I have a book out called The Self-Care Journey, available on Amazon and for the live in Jamaica, if you're from Jamaica listening. But basically what inspired me to write the book was I was invited by there's a program out here called the GGP, the Governor General's Program of Excellence. So they invited me to do a workshop on a conference they were having called the National Youth Conference. It was basically, they wanted me to facilitate a self-care workshop. And basically in that workshop, I was just exploring different activities. I was exploring the topic more. And I just realized that what people think self-care is and what even they were expecting, there's just so much more to it. And just having that knowledge, exploring the topic then, and even having the knowledge of my of being a pharmacist, there's just so much more that's involved in self-care. Because then I even realized I was doing some reading around that time too, and I was just seeing how important self-care is, because in a lot of the treatment strategies, the number one thing to do first, like as soon as anything starts going wrong, I guess chronically, or like we're looking at lifestyle diseases, most of them, the first line of treatment is always to make sure the patient is doing correct self-care strategies, make sure they're living right, make sure they're eating right, make sure they're exercising, and so on. Because that's when it comes down to hypertension and diabetes, that's the first thing. Change up their eating habits and make sure they're exercising more. In reality, though, we know that they're not going to really do that. So that's why when we find out they have hypertension and diabetes, we put them on a low dose medication, because in reality, we know some people not really do that. But on paper, in the guidelines of treatment of these things, the first line of therapy is changing up how you eat, changing up how you live. So just thinking of that and looking at what people think, or what I know people assume self-care is, because once I hear self-care, you always think about that influencer that's like, oh, I just did a mask today, a facial mask, I got a mani-pedi, I went to the spa, that's what you're thinking of when you hear self-care. But it's just so much more to it than that. And basically when I was doing the workshop I was coming up with like a little booklet or something to have them take home from the workshop. I wanted to give them some tips on, self-care, trying to show them, what they can do, what self-care can look like. It's not only this, it's not only that. You can do this for self-care, you can do that, and, help yourself get a little bit better in general in life. And while I was doing that little booklet, I was just finding myself fleshing out the things more and more and more. And I was just getting deep, like really deep with it. So I was like, let me just write the book. Let me just make this into like a book. I just fully publish it as a book and so on. And it's been doing pretty well. And I like to see the reactions when people read it. They're like, oh, open my eyes to this and that. And I'm like, that's exactly what I was trying to do with this book. I wanted people's eyes to be opened up to what self-care is, what self-care can be, and how it is not any one thing. It's not, okay, I need to be going to the spa, I need to be getting more massages. No, there's no mainstay thing that's okay, you need to be doing this more. It's individualized. Each person needs to be doing, I guess, something more that's specific towards them. So there's nothing, and that's a big thing with the book, like a main theme with the book, that it's individualized. There's nothing that you should, there's no one, I guess, that you should be looking to be like, I need to do everything exactly like them. You can't aspire to be like someone, but not, specifically, I need to be doing exactly what they're doing, because somebody might have a different schedule from you, so they can have more time to do something that you can't. But when you are doing something, you have to factor in time, schedule at work, as well as I go to school and so on. So yeah, that's so that was the inspiration for the book and writing and so on.
All right, so thank you for sharing with us, Mr. Christie.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, this has come to the end of our podcast. Be sure to follow us on our favorite social media platform, that is on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. I can find me too. MDC_X on Instagram and MDC RX on YouTube. So yeah, you'll find me all over the place, and even on TikTok too. So yeah.
Okay, so be sure to follow Mr. Christie on TikTok, Instagram, and any other platform he's on.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Same to you. Thanks for having me.